Imagine a shadow falling over the gilded altars of Mexico City's grandest cathedral, where a woman kneels in prayer, her rosary beads clicking like the jaws of fate. But in the dead of night, those same hands twist iron into instruments of torment, drawing forth cries that plead not just for mercy, but for divine intervention. What if evil wears the mask of piety, and sin's retribution whispers through the walls of the wicked? This is the chilling genesis of Guadalupe Bejarano, a soul entangled in darkness, where justice from above hovers like an avenging angel. The cobblestone streets of Mexico City in the late 19th century gleamed under the flicker of gas lamps, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to stretch toward the heavens like accusatory fingers. It was an era of stark contrasts, where President Porfirio Díaz's iron-fisted regime draped the nation in a veneer of progress. Railways snaking through ancient valleys, opulent mansions rising amid squalid slums, and the elite parading in Parisian finery while the masses scraped by on tortillas and despair. Amid this facade of modernization, divine justice often felt distant, a forgotten promise in the Psalms, yet it simmered beneath the surface, waiting to erupt in tales of retribution that echoed biblical plagues. In the heart of the city's affluent Colonia Roma district, though it wasn't yet called that, stood a mansion on what was then known as Calle de la Tuba, its pink limestone facade glowing softly in the twilight like blush skin hiding bruised veins. This was the domain of Guadalupe Martínez de Bejarano, a widow whose name evoked respect and piety among her neighbors. At 43, she cut an imposing figure, tall, with a frame honed by years of calculated restraint, her black mourning dress clinging like a shroud, embroidered with subtle crosses that proclaimed her devotion. Her hair, pulled taut into a severe bun, framed a face of sharp angles. High cheekbones that could have been sculpted by a Renaissance master, eyes dark as the abyss in Job's Lamentations, and lips that curved into smiles reserved for church socials or business dealings. Guadalupe's reputation was impeccable, a shield forged in the fires of societal expectation. She attended Mass at the Metropolitan Cathedral every Sunday, her contributions to orphanages and parish funds whispered about with admiration. A true daughter of the Church, the priest would say, blessing her with holy water that might as well have been oil for her unctuous charm. She ran a thriving agency, placing young domestics in the homes of Mexico's elite, governors' wives, industrial barons, even foreign diplomats who craved the authenticity of indigenous labor. These girls, often plucked from rural pueblos ravaged by famine or Díaz rural guards, arrived wide-eyed and grateful, their simple rebozos wrapped around dreams of a better life. Guadalupe promised them salvation through service, a twisted echo of Christ's call to the meek. But beneath this pious exterior lurked a darkness that twisted the soul's core, a perversion of stewardship into domination, reminiscent of the serpent's whisper in Eden. Guadalupe viewed her charges not as souls to nurture, but as vessels for her suppressed rage, a rage born perhaps from her own widowed isolation, or deeper, from a childhood marred by unspoken abuses in a patriarchal world that demanded women's silence. Psychologically, she embodied the shadow self that Carl Jung would later describe, though in her time, it was simply called sin. Biblically, she mirrored Jezebel's cunning, hiding malice behind power. Her methods were a profane sacrament. Isolation, degradation, then destruction, all under the guise of moral correction. Her son, Aurelio, 22 and frail as a wilting altar flower, haunted the upper floors like a specter from Dante's Inferno. His skin was pallid from endless indoor days, his eyes hollowed by opium tinctures, laudanum, that false redeemer, which he swigged to drown the echoes rising from below. A stutter plagued his speech, a remnant of childhood terrors when his mother's lessons turned on him. He had learned early to vanish into wallpaper patterns, to pray silently for deliverance that never came. In his journal, hidden beneath floorboards like buried treasure, he scrawled confessions. Mother's eyes gleam like Judas's silver when she speaks of discipline. Is this God's will or the devil's mimicry? The mansion itself was a character in this tragedy, its architecture a metaphor for duplicity. Grand salons upstairs brimmed with velvet drapes, crystal chandeliers that tinkled like distant bells, and walls adorned with oil paintings of saints. Saint Sebastian pierced by arrows, symbolizing endured suffering. The Virgin Mary, her gaze averted as if unwilling to witness. Downstairs, the servants' quarters descended into a labyrinth of dim corridors, where the air grew thick with the scent of lye soap and fear sweat. The basement, sealed by a heavy oak door with iron locks that clanged like prison gates, served as Guadalupe's inner sanctum, a chamber of horrors where light filtered through barred slits, casting crucifix-shaped shadows on the flagstone floor. It was here that Guadalupe refined her special training, a euphemism for torments that blurred the line between earthly punishment and hellish preview. She drew from medical texts smuggled from Europe, anatomy books detailing nerve clusters, pressure points, blending them with folk remedies and her own sadistic ingenuity. Heat from a coal brazier, its embers glowing like infernal coals. Whips fashioned from horsehair, leaving welts that mimicked the scourging of Christ. Starvation diets that evoked the fasting of prophets, but without spiritual reward. Each act was laced with scripture, twisted, "Suffer the little children," she'd murmur, invoking Matthew 19 verse 14, not as invitation, but as curse. The pivot to murder came in the winter of 1887, a season when frost etched windows like divine warnings, and the city's smog hung low, muffling cries that might otherwise carry. January 18th dawned with a spectral mist rising from the remnants of Lake Texcoco, the ancient Aztec bed on which the capital precariously sat, a reminder that foundations built on conquest were ever unstable. On this day, Casimira Juarez, a 16-year-old orphan from the rugged Sierras of Michoacan, approached the mansion's door with trembling hands. Her journey had been arduous. 6 days on dusty roads, hitching rides on mule carts, her only possession a frayed cloth bundle containing a crucifix necklace and a letter from her village priest. Cholera had claimed her parents, leaving her adrift in a world that devoured the vulnerable. Guadalupe answered the knock herself, her silhouette framed in the doorway like a confessor in a booth. She scanned Casimira with predatory precision, the girl's braided hair, shiny with hope, her patched hupil dress, threadbare but clean, her eyes, large and luminous, reflecting a soul unscarred by urban cynicism. "You've come far, child," Guadalupe intoned, her voice smooth as sacramental wine. "The Lord provides for those who seek humbly." She ushered Casimira inside, the door closing with a resonant thud that sealed fates. The initial weeks were deceptively kind, a honeymoon phase designed to lower defenses. Casimira rose at cockcrow to knead masa for tortillas, the kitchen filled with the warm aroma of comel-heated corn. She polished silverware until it gleamed like communion chalices, dusted mahogany furniture that creaked under her touch. Guadalupe's supervision was constant, her footsteps silent on Persian rugs, but Casimira mistook it for maternal care. "You're learning well," Guadalupe would say, a rare smile cracking her facade, though her eyes catalogued vulnerabilities. The girls flinch at loud noises, her tears over a broken plate, her whispered prayers at bedtime. Yet, like the slow tightening of a garrote, criticism crept in. "This floor isn't spotless. Do you mock my standards?" Guadalupe's tone sharpened, her words like barbs. Imaginary flaws multiplied, specks of dust invisible to the eye, linens folded with microscopic creases. Casimira, desperate to please, worked longer hours, her hands chafing raw from lye. Meals were withheld as penance, echoing the biblical fasts of repentance, but here twisted into starvation. Empathy stirred in the viewer. This girl, alone in a vast city, clinging to faith amid mounting dread. Aurelio observed from alcoves, his heart pounding like a trapped bird. He once slipped Casimira extra bread, whispering, "BCC careful," his stutter betraying terror. But Guadalupe's wrath was swift. She cornered him in the library, her breath hot against his ear. Interfere again, and you'll join her in purification. He retreated, laudanum bottle trembling in hand, his journal entries growing frantic. The girl's laughter has faded. Mother's shadow lengthens. Lord, if this is trial, grant me Job's patience. By mid-February, the basement became Casimira's purgatory. Stripped bare, she stood shivering on cold stone, the air dank with mildew and despair. Guadalupe circled, her black dress rustling like raven wings, pointing out flaws with a poker heated in the brazier. Your sloth shows in these bones. Starvation cleanses the soul. The iron hovered inches from skin, heat waves distorting the air, building anticipation more torturous than contact. When it touched, brief, searing, screams echoed upward, muffled by thick walls but piercing Aurelio's opium haze. Wounds were tended with clinical detachment, salves of aloe and herbs. Bandages changed daily to prevent infection, allowing the cycle to renew. Psychologically, Guadalupe eroded reality. Forced confessions to thefts never committed, gratitude for pain as redemption. Thank me for saving your soul, she'd demand, her voice a serpent's hiss. Casimira, mind fracturing, began to believe. Forgive me, Signora, I'm sinful. This inversion of grace, mercy as malice, chilled with spiritual horror, evoking divine retribution, turned inward. The journal chronicled the descent. February 17th. Cries like a lamb to slaughter. Mother hums hymns during whatever transpires below. February 24th. Blood seeps under the door. She claims accidents in devotion. Pray for us sinners. March 2nd. Silence now, worse than screams. Is the girl gone? Death claimed Casimira in early March, her emaciated frame collapsing mid-torment, heart faltering like a candle in wind. Guadalupe stared at the lifeless form, a flicker of ecstasy in her eyes, the ultimate power, godlike in its finality. Yet practicality intruded, wrapping the body in linens stained with old blood, dragging it to a cart under moonless sky. The burial ground was a forsaken lot on the city's fringe, earth soft from recent rains, swallowing secrets as the grave deepened. Shovelfuls thumped rhythmically, each a nail in her coffin of conscience. In that moment, as dirt covered Casimira's face, eyes eternally open in accusation, Guadalupe felt a calling. This was an end but Genesis. The thrill of dominion, the rush of forbidden release, demanded repetition. She would refine, select victims more isolated, extend sufferings for deeper insights, all while her public piety grew. Divine justice? Perhaps it loomed, a sword of Damocles, but for now, sin reigned. Post-murder, Guadalupe's professional phase bloomed like a poisonous flower. She hosted teas for society matrons, their lace gloves fluttering over teacups as they praised her charity. Fundraisers for the church filled her calendar. Auctions of embroidered altar cloths, her own donations lavish. Her agency thrived, rural families sending daughters with blind trust. Unaware, they fed a maw of malice. By day, she embodied virtue, attending vespers, her beads clicking in prayer, voice joining choruses in Latin hymns. Neighbors nodded approvingly at her austere grace, whispering of her as a model widow. But nights brought rituals of review. In her study, lit by a single candle's flame dancing like hellfire, she pored over notes on Casimira's progress, thresholds of pain, moments of breakage, planning enhancements for the next. The spiritual undertone deepened. Guadalupe justified her acts as holy work, purging impure souls in a corrupted world. Biblical echoes twisted. Abraham's sacrifice, but without angelic halt. The crucifixion's agony, replicated in flesh. Yet guilt flickered in quiet moments, a whisper of conscience like the Holy Spirit's nudge, ignored. Aurelio's torment intensified. He wandered the mansion like a lost soul, laudanum visions blending with reality, ghostly figures in corridors, Casimira's face in mirrors. His journal pleaded, If God sees all, why this silence? Am I complicit in damnation? The city pulsed onward, oblivious. Carriages clattered over stones. Markets buzzed with vendors hawking tamales and pulque. Church bells tolled hours like judgments. But in Guadalupe's realm, darkness festered, a cancer on the soul of Mexico. Her next victim loomed on the horizon, drawn by promises of salvation, stepping into a trap laced with eternal themes: sin's seduction, justice's delay, redemption's elusive grasp. This phase of restraint lasted nearly a year, a gestation for greater evils. Guadalupe scouted prospects at train stations, where girls disembarked dusty and dazed, their eyes scanning for hope. She selected with care. No family ties, no letters home, souls adrift in urban wilderness. Her methods evolved, psychological priming first, building false security before the fall. One such girl, Maria Lopez from Oaxaca, arrived in late 1887. Similar to Casimira, 15, orphaned, devout, she entered the mansion with a curtsy and a Dios te bendiga. Guadalupe's smile hid fangs. And you, child, here you'll find purpose. The pattern recommenced, subtler now. Praise laced with barbs, tasks impossible to perfect. Maria's hands blistered from endless scrubbing. Her stomach growled through denied suppers. Fasting purifies, Guadalupe preached, eyes alight. Aurelio, witnessing anew, attempted intervention. A note slipped under Maria's door, flee while you can. But Guadalupe intercepted, her fury biblical. Betrayer. Like Cain, she confined him to his room, dosing his food with extra laudanum, blurring his world into narcotic fog. By Christmas 1887, Maria descended to the basement, chains rattling like Marley's ghosts. Tortures refined. Water drips simulating madness. Isolation in pitch black evoking the void before creation. Screams rose carol-like, twisted Yuletide hymns. Yet Guadalupe paused short of murder, testing limits. Maria survived, broken but breathing, placed in a distant household as reformed. This success emboldened. Mercy as control, life spared to prolong terror. Spiritually, the mansion thrummed with unease. Servants whispered of hauntings, cold spots, unexplained sobs, shadows mimicking tortured forms. Guadalupe dismissed as superstition, but in prayer, her beads felt heavier, as if weighted by souls. The turning point neared. Whispers in elite circles hinted at missing girls, but status shielded her. Díaz's regime, obsessed with order, ignored underclass plights, a societal sin mirroring her own. As 1888 dawned, Guadalupe's hunger grew. Casimira's grave, unmarked, perhaps stirred in rains, bones rising like Ezekiel's vision. Divine retribution brewed, but for now, evil flourished in pious disguise. This tale, rooted in historical shadows, chills with its truth. Evil hides in holy places, sin's legacy haunts generations. Empathy for victims swells, their innocence crushed under power's heel. Dread builds, how long before justice strikes? Curiosity pulls, what horrors next? In this expanded chronicle, we delve deeper, feeling the textures. Rough stone under knees, metallic tang of blood, acrid smoke from braziers. Pacing ebbs and flows, short breaths in tension, longer reflections on morality. Emotional immersion peaks in reflections on redemption's possibility or its eternal denial. Guadalupe's story isn't mere crime. It's a parable of the soul's battle, where divine light pierces darkness, demanding we confront our own shadows. In the shadowed underbelly of Porfirio, Díaz, Mexico, where the opulent facades of progress masked the rot of inequality, Guadalupe Martínez de Bejarano honed her darkness into a blade of precision. The years following Casimira's murder in 1887 were not idle repentance, but a meticulous forging of her infernal craft. By day, she glided through Mexico City's elite circles like a black-veiled specter of virtue, her contributions to cathedrals and charities earning her whispers of sainthood. Coins clinked into collection plates under her gloved hands, each one a hypocritical offering to a god she increasingly saw as her accomplice. Yet, as vespers echoed through stone arches, her mind wandered not to heavenly grace but to the abyss. Themes of original sin, the fall from Eden, twisted into justifications for her urges. Psychologically, she embodied the Jungian shadow, unacknowledged evil blooming in the repressed soul. Biblically, she echoed the Pharisee, outwardly pure but inwardly ravenous wolves. Her mansion on Calle de la Tuba stood as a monument to duplicity, its pink limestone walls absorbing the sun's warmth by day, only to exhale chilled dread at night. Upstairs, salons brimmed with the scent of beeswax candles and incense from silver censers, religious icons gazing down with painted eyes that seemed to avert in shame. Downstairs, the basement evolved into a chamber of calculated horror. Walls lined with shelves holding medical tomes on anatomy, their pages dog-eared at diagrams of nerves and pressure points. A workbench cluttered with tools, pincers, brands, restraints, each polished to a sinister gleam. The air hung heavy with the metallic tang of iron and the faint, acrid residue of scorched flesh from past experiments. Guadalupe spent her evenings here, lamplight casting elongated shadows that danced like demons as she sketched improvements, stronger chains to symbolize unbreakable bonds of sin, graduated implements for escalating pain, mirroring the circles of Dante's Inferno. Central to her strategy was managing Aurelio, her son, whose fragility had become both liability and asset. At 23, he was a wraith in human form, gaunt cheeks hollowed by addiction, eyes glazed with the milky haze of laudanum, his stutter now a constant tremor in speech. He paced his room like a caged animal, floorboards creaking under his slippered feet, muttering fragments of prayers. "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive." But forgiveness eluded him. Guilt gnawed like the worm that dieth not, from Mark 9, verse 44. Guadalupe orchestrated his decline with maternal precision, summoning Dr. Heinrich Müller, a German neurologist fashionable among the elite for his nerve tonics. Sessions in the parlor unfolded amid the tick of a grandfather clock, Müller probing Aurelio's mind while Guadalupe observed, her smile masking calculation. Hysterical delusions. Müller diagnosed, prescribing higher doses of opium derivatives that blurred reality further. Publicly, she lamented her son's inherited frailty, tears glistening like holy water. Privately, she ensured his ramblings, of screams in the night, blood on stones, would be dismissed as madness. His journal, hidden in a locked drawer, overflowed with desperate scrawls. Mother's eyes hold hellfire. Am I Jonah in the whale, or Judas with the silver? This control extended to her victim selection, a process infused with spiritual symbolism. Guadalupe studied societal undercurrents like a theologian poring over Apocrypha. Rural migrations driven by Díaz land grabs, families fractured by debt and drought, sending daughters to the capital as offerings to urban Moloch. She sought souls embodying innocence, young, resilient, their spirits like uncut diamonds she could shatter for divine-like satisfaction. Isolation was key. No ties meant no inquiries, echoing the biblical wanderers lost in wilderness. Her agency became a web, advertisements in church bulletins promising moral uplift through service, drawing desperate parents like moths to flame. The perfect prey arrived in September 1888. Maria Santos, weathered by sun and sorrow, leading her 15-year-old daughter Elena to the mansion's door. The family's farm in Puebla had withered under relentless drought, debts piling like unconfessed sins. Maria's eyes, rimmed with fatigue, pleaded as she presented Elena, a girl with sun-kissed skin, braided hair thick as rope, and a quiet fortitude that shone like a martyr's halo. Guadalupe assessed her with a predator's gaze. Healthy limbs for enduring trials, inner strength promising exquisite breakage, no nearby kin to question silence. "The Lord provides," Guadalupe murmured, ushering them in, the door's latch clicking like a confessional grate. Elena's induction mirrored Casimira's, but refined, a slow descent into Gehenna. Initial weeks bloomed with deceptive benevolence. Mornings baking pan dulce, the kitchen warm with cinnamon and yeast, afternoons mending linens under sunlight streaming through lace curtains. Guadalupe's praise flowed like communion wine. "You're adapting beautifully, child." But observation was constant. Notes in a leather-bound ledger. Reactions to subtle criticisms, thresholds of fear. Psychologically, she sowed doubt. City air can unsettle rural souls, spoken with feigned concern, planting seeds of self-distrust. Escalation crept in like twilight shadows. Faults materialized, a speck on crystal, a tepid teapot. Punishment started mild, standing rigid for hours, muscles aching like penitential flagellation, skipped meals as fasting for clarity. Elena's protests met lectures on obedience, biblical quotes twisted. "Suffer patiently, as Christ did." Locked in the coal cellar one night, darkness enveloping like the void of Genesis, she whispered prayers, fingers tracing an invisible cross on dusty walls. Aurelio, witnessing from stairwell shadows, felt his soul fracture. He confronted her once, voice quavering, "And mother, this isn't right. She's just a G-girl." Guadalupe's response chilled. "Kindness without discipline leads to damnation. Would you shepherd her soul instead?" The threat hung heavy. He retreated, laudanum burning his throat, journal confessing. Elena's eyes plead like the damned. "I am coward, like Peter denying thrice." By December 1888, Elena was a specter, eyes sunken, skin pallid, movements robotic. The basement, now her abyss, featured enhancements, chains from ceiling hooks, clinking softly in drafts, the brazier glowing with hellish embers, a custom chair, wooden frame bolted to floor, straps of leather binding limbs in crucifixion pose. Guadalupe's sessions were symphonies of suffering, heat applied with surgical precision, burns blooming like stigmata, intervals of mercy where she bandaged wounds, whispering, "This purifies you for heaven." Religious delusion deepened her psyche. She saw herself as divine instrument, inflicting trials like Job's afflictions, saving through pain what the church deemed too weak. The finale spanned 3 agonizing days, a passion play of torment, alternating brutality and feigned kindness. Searing irons followed by cool compresses, screams echoing then silenced with honeyed words. "Every soul must be refined in fire," Guadalupe intoned, eyes alight with fanatic zeal. Elena's heart faltered mid-session, body slumping, spirit fleeing like a released dove. Frustration gripped Guadalupe, not grief, but artistic discontent, as if a masterpiece unfinished. Disposal was methodical, body wrapped in burlap, carted under starless sky to a peripheral lot, grave dug deep, earth patting down like sealed tombs. Variations in sites and times evaded patterns, night watchmen's lanterns' distant flickers. When Maria returned weeks later, frantic, Guadalupe wove deception. Elena fell ill, a fever delirium. She insisted on returning home to warn you. Stubborn faith, you know. Plausible, unverifiable. Maria departed, hope flickering like a vigil candle, unaware her daughter's remains fed the soil. The interlude from 1888 to 1892 marked Guadalupe's zenith. Impulses bridled into sophistication. Publicly, she ascended, organizing quake relief, wagons laden with blankets rumbling through rubble-strewn streets, funding orphanages where children sang hymns in her honor, archbishops' pulpit praises echoing her Christ-like charity. Her agency flourished, a pipeline of vulnerability, screening for isolation, resilience, allure, traits promising profound destruction. Aurelio's decay aided, confined, drugged, his outings rare, mutterings dismissed as lunacy. Treatments paraded her devotion. Privately, they ensured silence. His journal wailed. I see ghosts in mirrors, Elena's face accusing. Am I in Sheol? Beneath, she plotted ambition. Multiple victims, family ties as torture levers. Spring 1892 brought the Vega sisters. Esperanza, 19, strong-willed guardian. Carmen, 17, timid. Rosa, 15, sharp-minded. From Hidalgo's ruins, crop failures and revolts scattering them like chaff. Guadalupe interviewed amid parlor teas, scents of jasmine masking intent. Esperanza's dignity a challenge, Carmen's fear pliable, Rosa's wit a spark to extinguish. Sisters together, how providential, she cooed, eyes gleaming like Judas's betrayal. The campaign unfolded masterfully. First month, kindness as bait, shared meals of mole poblano, flavors rich and comforting. Outings to markets, colors vivid under sun. Bonds strengthened, false security rooted. Then, division, praise uneven, competitions for favors. Rosa excels. Perhaps Carmen needs extra guidance. Seeds of resentment sprouted, guilt festered like unconfessed sin. Esperanza doubted her choices. Carmen craved approval. Rosa withdrew. By June, isolation complete. Trust eroded, basement introduced. Guadalupe's strategy. Use kinship against them. Threats to one coercing obedience from others. Spiritual chill deepened. Sufferings as purifications. Family bonds twisted into chains stronger than iron. The mansion thrummed with foreboding. Whispers of hauntings, cold drafts carrying ethereal sobs, shadows elongating like accusing fingers. Guadalupe prayed harder, rosary beads clicking like countdowns, convincing herself of righteousness amid growing dread. Aurelio, in narcotic fog, sensed the escalation. 3 now? Lord's mercy in this. But powerlessness bound him tighter than chains. As tortures commenced, pacing deliberate, gradual, prolonged, maximizing despair. Visuals assault, basement lit by sputtering torches, casting grotesque shadows, sisters' faces contorted in empathy turned agony, implements heating, air shimmering with heat. Emotionally, immersion peaks, empathy for sisters' shattered unity, dread of inevitable breakage, curiosity at Guadalupe's depths. Spiritually, it's a meditation on corrupted grace, divine justice delayed, sin's legacy echoing eternally. Historically anchored, Díaz era of forced progress, rural exodus feeding urban predators, church's complicity in social facades. This phase crescendos Guadalupe's evolution, from impulsive killer to architect of suffering, her soul a blackened altar where redemption whispers but never arrives. The Vega sisters' ordeal unveils new horrors, a testament to evil's ingenuity when cloaked in piety. The basement beneath Calle de la Tuba had transformed into a profane cathedral of agony, its evolution a testament to Guadalupe's darkening soul. Over the intervening years, she had poured resources into its refinement. Walls reinforced with sound-dampening earth, air thick with the perpetual scent of coal smoke and singed skin, flickering gas lamps casting elongated shadows that twisted like tormented spirits from Revelation's abyss. 3 custom restraint chairs, commissioned from a discreet blacksmith under the guise of medical aids, dominated the space, arranged in a cruel triangle. Each victim faced the others, eyes forced to witness sufferings that multiplied despair exponentially, a psychological crucifixion echoing the thieves beside Christ, yet devoid of redemption. This configuration was Guadalupe's masterpiece, born from twisted insight, shared torment eroded bonds, turning love into liability. Biblical parallels haunted the chamber, Cain's mark upon siblings, the binding of Isaac amplified threefold. Sensory details assaulted, the metallic creak of chains as bodies strained, the sizzle of brazier-heated pokers against damp air, the acrid tang of fear sweat mingling with incense wafting from upstairs devotions. Implements lined shelves like reliquaries, primitive electrical batteries for shocks that convulsed like demonic possession, near-drowning troughs evoking Noah's flood as punishment, salve for healing just enough to prolong the cycle, a mockery of Christ's wounds tended yet eternal. The Vega sisters, Esperanza, the resolute eldest at 19, Carmen, 17 and fragile, Rosa, 15 with piercing intelligence, descended into this Gehenna in spring 1892, lured by promises of familial employment. Their initial descent was cloaked in pedagogy, a special curriculum for exemplary service. Guadalupe intoned, voice resonant as a confessor's, securing them without immediate harm. Strapped in leather that bit into wrists like thorns, they endured helplessness while she paced, black skirts rustling like raven wings. Obedience is the soul's salvation, she lectured, eyes gleaming with fanatic light. Unpleasant trials forge virtue, as golden fire, per Proverbs. Demonstrations commence subtly. Brief iron touches blooming red welts, panic from submerged faces gasping like drowning sinners, shocks jittering limbs in unholy spasms. Commentary wove instruction with delusion. See how resistance burdens your sisters. Carmen? Encourage cooperation. Rosa? Lest selfishness damn you all. This forced complicity shattered unity swiftly. Within weeks, competition festered, pleas for personal mercy at siblings' expense, love weaponized into accusation. Esperanza bore the heaviest cross, guilt as family guardian, her decision to seek work in the capital now a millstone. Guadalupe exploited relentlessly. Transfer their penance to yourself. True sisterly sacrifice. Acceptance brought temporary relief, only for reversal. Now share in her burden, equity in suffering. No escape. Every path looped into deeper labyrinth, mirroring the soul's entrapment in mortal sin without contrition. By late 1892, the mansion strained under intensity. Sessions devoured hours, energy sapping Guadalupe's facade. Weight loss sharpening features to skeletal austerity, eyes fever-bright like possessed saints, grooming neglected, hair escaping bun in wild strands. She muttered to voids during dinners, debating refinements with phantom advisors, her psyche fracturing under unchecked hubris. Aurelio, 24 and opium-ravaged, since the escalation through drugged haze. His room, a self-imposed cell scented with laudanum's bitter sweetness, echoed with muffled trios of screams piercing floorboards like nails into flesh. Journal entries, scrawled in trembling hand. December 10th. 3 voices entwined in agony, longer than ever. Mother's laughter rises with them. December 18th. Blood trails on stairs. She claims devotional accidents. Lies stain like original sin. Most chilling. Invitations to witness. Time you grasped human depths, she urged one December eve, voice honeyed yet edged. Education incomplete without truth. Refusals via feigned ailments bought time. But her patience thinned, threats implicit in cold stares, hinting forcible inclusion. Terror catalyzed action. In lucid intervals, Aurelio chronicled meticulously. Dates, descriptions, burial sites sketched from overheard plans. Hidden missives reached Father Miguel Herrera, parish priest aroused by New Year's 1893 visit. Screams interrupted charity discussions. Guadalupe's flustered, delirious fever fooled momentarily, but Herrera probed discreetly. Whispers accumulated. Neighbors' nocturnal horrors. Hours-long wails. Burning flesh odors drifting like infernal incense. Absent servants despite claims. Tradesmen's tales. Restraint forges. Anomalous medical supplies. Reduced provisions belying larger staff. Herrera, consulting bishops and officials, treaded cautiously. Guadalupe's elite piety a shield. False accusations risked ruin. Winter 1893 deepened depravity. 6 months toll reduced sisters to husks. Esperanza catatonic, hysteria shattering stillness, body mapped in patterned burns like infernal tattoos, reopened scars, unspeakable violations. Carmen mad detached, giggling at voids, challenging Guadalupe's penetrative innovations. Rosa clung to lucidity, acute awareness amplifying torment. Negotiated pleas crushed for amusement. Hope dangled, then yanked like Judas's rope. Yet even this neared end. Sisters fading from cumulative ruin, appetite insatiable. Guadalupe plotted expansion, new victims amid lingering ones, perpetual supply. Opportunity, Julia Mendez and 14-year-old Isabella, widowed and destitute, perfect for collection. Youthful control, sophisticated yield, isolation. Eagerness bred errors, accelerating sisters' demise for space, underestimating Aurelio's resolve. February 14th, 1893. Planned finale, culmination of refinements. But Aurelio, fortified by desperation and diluted laudanum clarity, acted. Weeks' secret communion with Herrera bore fruit. Journals detailing years, acquisitions, tortures, disposals, basement layouts, psychological portraits of methodical sadism, not transient madness. Herrera, evidence compelling, orchestrated raid. That night, as Guadalupe orchestrated grand purification, ceremonial black garb, implements glowing like judgment flames, Aurelio unlocked rear door. Investigators, guided silently, breached basement. The tableau haunted lifetimes, air choking with blood, sweat, excrement. Sisters in chairs, forms ravaged beyond recognition. Shallow breaths, tear-streaked stares, incoherent mercies begged. Esperanza near death yet clinging. Carmen unresponsive amid tears. Rosa whispering pleas for release, sanity's last ember. Guadalupe, unperturbed, continued, calm as administering sacrament, expecting perhaps divine vindication. Burst and halted her mid-act. No flight, no denial. Composure chilling, as if interruption scripted. Discovery shattered Mexico City. Porfirian facade cracked. Elite capable of abyssal evil. Piety masking predation. Press exploded. La Temible Bejarano. Broadsheets with Jose Guadalupe Posada's stark engravings. Skeletal torturer branding girls, capturing national dread. Aurelio's testimony pivotal. Years complicity weighed, yet courage redeemed partially. Public fury demanded gallows, but era's laws yielded imprisonment. Spiritual resonance profound. Delayed justice as biblical. Pharaoh's plagues, Sodom's fire. Victims' suffering evoked martyrs. Guadalupe's delusion, Antichrist mimicry. Legacy, cautionary parable. Evil in holy garb. Sin's retribution inevitable, though tardy. Empathy swells for sisters. Innocence pulverized, bonds perverted. Dread from proximity, predator in plain sight. Curiosity satisfied in fall. Reflection on conscience's whisper ignored. Mansion echoes emptied. Basement sealed. Ghosts lingering in collective memory. Guadalupe's end. Confinement. Natural death, forgotten amid shame. Yet Posada's illustrations endure, eternal accusation. In this chronicle's crescendo, textures vivid. Rough leather biting skin, heat waves distorting vision, blood's coppery warmth. Pacing, breathless in raid, reflective in aftermath. Emotional depth, cathartic release, lingering chill of human depravity. Guadalupe Bejarano's story culminates not in triumph of evil, but its exposure, a reminder that divine scales balance, even in shadowed hearts. Redemption elusive for her, but for survivors and society, a harrowing grace. The basement door splintered open on that fateful February night in 1893, flooding the infernal chamber with lantern light that danced across walls slick with despair. Investigators froze, breath catching in throats thick with the stench of blood, scorched flesh, and human waste. A miasma that clung like original sin. Guadalupe stood composed amid the carnage, her black ceremonial garb immaculate, a glowing poker still grasped in gloved hand. "Gentlemen," she intoned with chilling equanimity. "I assume you have proper authorization for this intrusion into my private household affairs." No panic flickered in her dark eyes. No tremor betrayed guilt. To her, this was not crime, but curriculum. Moral instruction for wayward souls, victims mere students requiring rigorous purification. Her detachment pierced deeper than any blade. A soul so severed from empathy, she viewed suffering as sacrament, pain as pathway to grace. Biblical echoes twisted in her mind. The scourging of sinners, Abraham's test, yet inverted into profane ritual. Psychologically, she embodied absolute dominion. Humanity reduced to clay, for her molding, screamed symphonies of supremacy. Evidence unearthed corroborated Aurelio's damning testimony, while unveiling abysses even he dared not fully chronicle. Leather-bound journals, hidden behind false panels, chronicled experiments with clinical detachment. Anatomical sketches of nerve clusters targeted for maximum agony. Timelines charting psychological fracture points. Trophies, locks of hair, rosaries, patched dresses. Mementos from conquered spirits, echoing Cain's mark of ownership. Entries chilled with calculated candor. October 15th, 1892. The eldest Pineda sisters' resilience yields prime demonstrations for the younger. Familial pain amplifies exponentially. Bonds transmuted into exquisite leverage. Refinement imperative. November 3rd, 1892. Middle sisters' withdrawal pierced via sibling threats. Protective instinct overrides even profound breakage. Humanity's core vulnerability exploited. December 12th, 1892. Current subjects waning, yields diminishing. Final phases imminent. Acquisitions pending for sustained inquiry. No madness feigned. Pure method. Hedonistic science laced with spiritual delusion. Souls saved through suffering she deemed divinely ordained. Arrest on February 15th ignited Mexico City like dry tinder. Broadsheets screamed, "La Temible Bejarano," the fearsome one, or La Mujer Verdugo, the female executioner. For the first documented female serial slayer in Mexican annals, a pillar of Porfirian piety, no less, disbelief warred with outrage. How could she, lavish donor to archbishops' coffers, praise from pulpits, paragon of widowhood, harbor such darkness? Yet evidence overwhelmed denial. Survivors' ravaged forms, basement's arsenal, journals' meticulous malice. Preliminary hearings packed courtrooms with gasping crowds. Journalists scribbling furiously, reformers decrying complicity, socialites averting eyes from mirrored hypocrisy. Guadalupe's demeanor deepened dread. No remorse shadowed her sharp features, no tear for shattered lives. Queried on torments, she lectured serenely. These ignorant peasants arrived devoid of moral fiber. My intensive guidance offered spiritual refinement, temporary discomfort for eternal benefit. Victims dehumanized as vessels for her necessary work, rights erased in her God-complex gaze. Prosecution, wielding irrefutable arsenal, unearthed prior atrocities. Casimira Juarez's 1887 murder, lightly punished amid era's laxity. Elena Santos vanished post-release. Aurelio's testimony, fractured voice recounting years' horrors, humanized the hidden. Medical savants detailed torture's sophistication. Prolonged agony sans swift death, anatomy mastered for endurance. Church probes exposed elite whispers ignored, status shielding sin, reputation over righteousness. Amid frenzy, Jose Guadalupe Posada, Mexico's mordant chronicler, immortalized the scandal in stark engravings. His broadsides, hawked on streets for pennies, pierced facades. Guadalupe, elegantly attired, torturing ethereal girls, composure contrasting carnage. Calavera motifs infused, skeletal victims accusing, emphasizing mortality's equalizer. These works etched her into folklore, cautioning that evil don's finest silk hides in hallowed halls. Shutterstock.com Commons.wikimedia.orgabry.com. Trial culminated September 1893. Guilty on murders and tortures, yet sentenced merely 10 years, 8 months. Public fury decried leniency, mirroring eras gender justice and serial crime novelty. Aurelio, complicit in silence, drew 2 years, fear and frailty mitigating, yet accountability demanded. Survivors endured lingering purgatory. Esperanza succumbed weeks post-rescue, body yielding to cumulative ruin. Carmen and Rosa breathed but broken. Institutionalized shadows, sanity sacrificed. Imprisoned in notorious Carcel de Bullen, foreboding fortress of stone and sorrow, Guadalupe faced inmates' wrath. Even hardened souls recoiled from child torturer. Solitary confinement shielded her, yet isolation gnawed. Guards' paternal instincts stirred, averted protection from hurled filth, curses echoing psalms inverted. In .wikipedia.org and .wikipedia.org. Her reversal poetic. Once controller, now controlled. Pride and poise reduced to haggard pleas, voice whispering where once commanded. Power stripped, no victims to dominate, soul adrift sand sadistic anchor. Journals continued in cell, theorizing human improvement, delusion unyielding. Winter 1895 claimed her. Pneumonia official, whispers of inmate assault lingering. No probe pursued, body unclaimed, burial anonymous, priests dutiful rites, no mourners. From elite eminence to forgotten felon, mirroring victims' erasure. The mansion on Calle de la Tuba, opulent in Porfirian splendor, stood condemned, pink limestone facade belying basement horrors. Facebook.com. Legacy reshaped Mexico, exposed complicity, ignored missings from margins, silenced suspicions for status. Reforms followed. Mandatory probes irrespective class, oversight on medical tools, serial murder codified with stiffer penalties. Yet profoundest, shattered illusions of evil's visage. Posada's prince, corridos sung in pulquerias, embedded parable. Monsters masquerade as matrons, predators prey on trust. Vulnerability of rural innocence, lured by promises echoing false prophets. Spiritually haunting, Guadalupe's unrepentant end. No deathbed grace, soul perhaps consigned to outer darkness. Matthew's weeping and gnashing. Victims' cries, biblical lamentations unanswered timely, yet justice delayed, descended. Society's reflection endures. How blind spots breed beasts, piety perverts to poison. Her grave unmarked, secrets perhaps interred. Undiscovered trophies, unspoken urges, or full revelation in records stark. This chronicle, textured with history's grit, ink-smudged broadsheets, stone-cold cells, blood-stained pages, evokes empathy for shattered innocence, dread at proximity of evil, curiosity sated in exposure, reflection on vigilance. Guadalupe Bejarano's saga warns eternally. Darkest sins lurk in light's glare, redemption denied the defiant, divine scales inexorable though slow. In confronting such shadows, we guard our own souls and society's most fragile lights.